Welcome to Sleep and Absorb. Find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and let yourself relax. Tonight, we explore fear.
Fear arrives before thought. Before the conscious mind has had time to assess the situation, to weigh the evidence, to form a considered opinion about what is happening and what should be done, the body is already responding. The heart rate has increased. The muscles have tensed. Attention has narrowed to the source of the threat. The body is prepared, mobilized, ready to act, all before the reasoning mind has finished its first sentence. This is not a design flaw. It is the opposite. The speed of the fear response is its most important feature. In the environment in which human beings evolved, the fraction of a second difference between a fear response that waited for conscious confirmation and one that acted immediately could be the difference between life and death. The animal that stopped to think about the rustling in the grass did not pass on its genes as reliably as the animal that was already running. Tonight we explore fear, the biology of it, the purpose of it, the remarkable variety of things it attaches itself to, and what the science tells us about living with it more skillfully. Let your breathing slow. You are safe here. And fear, understood clearly, is something much less threatening than it first appears. The fear response is orchestrated primarily by a small, almond-shaped structure deep in the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala functions as a threat detection system, continuously monitoring incoming sensory information for signals that match patterns associated with danger. When it detects a potential threat, it initiates a cascade of responses that prepare the body for action with extraordinary speed. The hypothalamus activates the sympathetic nervous system. Adrenaline and noradrenaline flood the bloodstream. The heart beats faster, pumping more blood to the large muscles. Breathing deepens to take in more oxygen. The pupils dilate to take in more light. Digestion slows because digesting food is not a priority when survival is at stake. The liver releases glucose into the blood to fuel the muscles. Sweat glands activate to cool the body in anticipation of physical exertion. All of this happens in seconds, coordinated by neurochemistry that operates far below the level of conscious control. There are two pathways by which the amygdala receives threat signals. The fast pathway, sometimes called the low road, carries a rough, unprocessed signal directly from the sensory thalamus to the amygdala, bypassing the cortex entirely. It is fast and crude. It triggers a fear response before the brain has properly identified what it is responding to. The slow pathway, the high road, carries a more fully processed signal from the sensory cortex, allowing for a more accurate assessment of the threat. But by the time the slow pathway signal arrives, the fast pathway has already put the body on alert. This is why you can jump at a shadow before you recognize it as harmless. The low road fired before the high road had finished processing. The body responded to something that turned out not to be a threat. And then the higher processing caught up and stood the alarm down. Better to react to 100 false alarms than to miss one genuine threat. Human beings show a remarkable consistency in some of the things they fear. Across cultures, across history, certain categories of threat reliably trigger fear responses. Heights, enclosed spaces, darkness, large predatory animals, certain kinds of insects, contamination, social rejection. These are not random. They correspond broadly to the categories of threat that were most significant in the environment in which our ancestors evolved. This is why phobias of snakes and spiders are far more common than phobias of cars or electrical outlets. even though in the modern world, cars and electrical outlets kill far more people than snakes and spiders. The fear system was calibrated for an ancestral environment, not a modern one. It has not had time in the few thousand years of modern civilization to recalibrate for the actual risk profile of contemporary life. We are, in this sense, running ancient threat detection software on modern hardware in an environment it was not designed for. Social fear is among the most powerful and pervasive forms of fear in human life. The fear of rejection, of humiliation, of being excluded from the group. In ancestral environments, social exclusion was not merely unpleasant, it was potentially lethal. A human being alone, separated from their group, faced dramatically reduced chances of survival. The brain treats social threats with a seriousness that reflects this ancient reality, even when the actual stakes of modern social situations are far lower. Fear becomes a problem not when it responds to genuine threats, which is precisely what it is designed to do, but when it generalizes to situations that do not warrant it. When the alarm system becomes miscalibrated, firing in response to cues that carry no real danger. When the anxiety that evolved to protect us from physical threats attaches itself to the uncertainties and social pressures of modern life and runs at a level that exceeds what the situation calls for. The most evidence-based approach to working with fear is exposure. The fear response habituates with repeated, safe exposure to the feared stimulus. The amygdala learns through repeated experience that the feared thing does not produce the anticipated harm to reduce its response. This is not the same as reasoning your way out of fear. It is a retraining of the fear system at a level below conscious thought, using the same mechanisms of learning that created the fear in the first place. But there is something else worth understanding about fear. The relationship between fear and courage is not what it is sometimes assumed to be. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action taken in the presence of fear. The person who feels no fear in a dangerous situation is not brave. They may simply have a poorly calibrated threat detection system. The person who feels the full weight of fear and acts anyway, who does the frightening thing despite the racing heart and the tightening chest, is demonstrating something genuine and admirable. Fear is not the enemy of courage. It is its precondition. Fear is not the enemy. It is a signal. One of the oldest and most important signals the body sends. The question is not how to silence it, but how to listen to it accurately to distinguish the signals that correspond to real threats from the signals that are misfires of an ancient system operating in a world it was not designed for. Notice the safety of this moment. The surface you're lying on, the temperature of the air, the sounds of wherever you are. There's no threat here. The amygdala, running its continuous monitoring, is finding nothing to flag. The body is not mobilized. The heart is settling. The breath is deepening and slowing. All the signals are pointing in the same direction. Safe, still, at rest. Fear served you today in whatever form it appeared. Maybe as a small background anxiety about something unresolved. Maybe as a sharper response to something specific. Maybe simply as the vigilance that kept you careful and attentive. It was doing its job, the job it has always done, the job that kept your ancestors alive long enough to produce you. Tonight it can rest. The monitoring can soften. The alarm can stand down. There's nothing here that requires it. Let your breathing slow. You are safe. You are resting. and the ground holds, as it always has. Good night.